My entitled younger brother stole my business idea and my girlfriend. Then he convinced our parents to fund his company, not mine. 3 years later, I destroyed him with evidence I'd been collecting. Now they're all begging for my help. I'm Ethan Carter, 29, male, from Denver, Colorado. I've spent most of my life watching my younger brother, Noah, 26, get everything handed to him on a silver platter while I fought for scraps. Noah was the golden child from the moment he was born. I was the responsible older brother who earned straight A's, worked part-time jobs through high school and college, and tried to make our parents, Robert and Linda Carter, proud. Noah was the creative genius who got away with mediocre grades, C-, because he was finding himself and had so much potential. If I brought home a B+ on a test, Robert and Linda would grill me on why it wasn't an A. If Noah got a C-, they'd praise his effort and blame the teacher for not understanding his unique learning style. When I worked summers at a hardware store in Aurora to save for college, they said I was building character. When Noah spent his summers playing video games and hanging out with friends at Wash Park, they said he was enjoying his youth and shouldn't be pressured to grow up too fast. The favoritism was so blatant that extended family commented on it during holiday gatherings at our home in Littleton. My grandmother, Margaret, pulled me aside when I was 16 during a Christmas dinner in Boulder. She told me she saw how unfairly I was treated but urged me to keep being the good kid because someday it would pay off. I held on to those words for years, believing my parents would eventually recognize my efforts and treat us equally. I was completely wrong. After graduating from the University of Colorado in Boulder, I moved back home briefly to develop a business idea I'd been passionate about since my junior year. I'd noticed a gap in the market for eco-friendly cleaning products specifically designed for small businesses and restaurants. During my business courses, I conducted extensive research on sustainable cleaning solutions, surveyed local businesses like Green Leaf Cafe and Mario's Italian Kitchen about their needs, and developed prototypes with the help of a chemistry professor. I spent months perfecting my business plan, researching suppliers, calculating costs, projecting revenues, and securing preliminary interest from several Denver restaurants and offices. My plan was solid, innovative, and had real potential for growth. I'd saved every penny from my part-time jobs throughout college, enough for initial inventory and basic marketing, but I needed additional capital to launch properly. That's when I made the mistake of sharing my excitement with my family. I was so proud of my business plan that I presented it to my parents over dinner one evening at our Littleton home. I had charts, projections, testimonials from potential customers, and a detailed launch timeline. Robert and Linda listened politely but seemed more interested in their phones than my presentation. When I finished, Robert said, "That's nice, son. Very ambitious." Linda added, "Just make sure you have a backup plan. Business is risky." Noah, who had been half listening while scrolling through his phone, suddenly perked up. "Wait, so you're basically making cleaning supplies, but for restaurants?" he asked. "It's much more complex than that," I explained. "These are specialized, eco-friendly formulations designed for commercial food service environments. The chemistry is completely different from household cleaners." Cool, Noah interrupted. "Sounds like something I could probably do better. Honestly, I've always been more of a people person than you are." I laughed it off, thinking it was just typical Noah trying to one-up me, but I should have known better. 2 weeks later, my girlfriend, Emily Watson, mentioned that Noah had been texting her a lot lately. Emily and I had been together for 2 years, meeting during our senior year at the University of Colorado. We'd been talking about moving in together, dreaming of building a life in Denver. She was smart, funny, and beautiful, definitely out of my league, but somehow she'd chosen me. "He's asking a lot of questions about your business idea," she said casually while we were watching a movie at my apartment. "Wants to know about the technical stuff, your research, things like that." I told him he should ask you directly. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "What kind of questions?" "Oh, about the formulations, your supplier contacts, which restaurants you've talked to," she said. "He says he's just curious about his big brother's project." She smiled and snuggled closer to me. "It's sweet that he's taking an interest." It wasn't sweet. It was reconnaissance. Over the next few weeks, I noticed Noah asking me seemingly innocent questions about my business. How did I develop the formulations? Which suppliers offered the best prices? Had I filed any patents yet? What was my timeline for launch? I was so excited about the project that I answered enthusiastically, thinking my little brother was finally showing genuine interest in something I was passionate about. I was an idiot. The first sign of real trouble came when Emily started acting distant. She was busy with work, she said, too tired for our usual date nights at our favorite Denver spots like Snooze AM Eatery. When we did spend time together, she seemed distracted, constantly checking her phone. When I asked if everything was okay, she'd flash a smile and say everything was fine, but something felt off. The second sign was when I went to meet with one of my potential restaurant clients, Mario's Italian Kitchen in Lodo, and the owner told me he'd already committed to working with someone else. Your brother came by last week with a very similar pitch, Mario explained. Actually, almost identical, but he offered better terms, and frankly, he seemed more professional, more experienced. My blood turned to ice. My brother? Noah? Yeah, Noah Carter, right? Nice kid, he said. He mentioned you'd work together on developing the products, but he'd be handling the business side since he had more experience in sales and customer relations. I hope there's no hard feelings. Business is business, you know. I couldn't speak. I just nodded and left, my mind reeling. Noah had stolen my idea, my research, my potential client, and somehow convinced them he was the more qualified candidate by lying about our working relationship. When I confronted Noah that evening, he was sitting at our parents' kitchen table in Littleton with his laptop open, wearing a smug smile. Hey, bro, he said casually. I heard you went by Mario's today. Too bad about that. You stole my business idea, I said, my voice shaking with rage. Stole? Noah laughed. Come on, man. It's just cleaning supplies. It's not like you invented something revolutionary. Besides, Mario's right. I am better at sales than you are. You're too uptight, too technical. These business owners want to work with someone who can relate to them, not some nerdy researcher type. I spent months developing those formulations. I did all the market research. I identified the suppliers, the potential clients, I said. And I improved on your ideas, Noah interrupted. Made them better, more marketable. That's how business works, bro. The best idea wins. You didn't improve anything. You stole everything I worked for. Our parents walked in just as my voice reached a shout. They took in the scene, me red-faced and furious, Noah sitting calmly with that infuriating smirk. What's all this yelling about? Linda asked. Your son stole my business idea and is now competing against me, I said, pointing at Noah. Robert sighed. Boys, you're both adults. There's enough room in the market for. No, there isn't, I exploded. This is a niche market. He's targeting the exact same clients I've been courting for months. He's using my research, my formulations, my supplier contacts. He stole everything. Noah shook his head sadly. I tried to include you, bro. I suggested we work together, but you weren't interested in sharing credit. You wanted all the glory for yourself. I stared at him in disbelief. That's a complete lie. Is it? Noah pulled out his phone and showed our parents some text messages. Look, I tried to reach out about collaborating, but he shut me down. Said he wanted to do it alone. I grabbed his phone and looked at the messages. They were heavily edited screenshots that made it look like I'd rejected his offers to work together when those conversations had never happened. These are fake, I protested. Our parents exchanged a look, the same look they'd given countless times when they thought I was being dramatic or jealous of Noah. I think you both need to calm down, Linda said. Noah, maybe you should have been more upfront about your interest in this type of business. And Ethan, maybe you should consider that a little competition might push you to do better. Competition? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, he stole my idea. Ideas can't really be stolen, Robert said. It's all about execution. And if Noah thinks he can execute better, well, he shrugged. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling like my entire world was crumbling. My parents didn't believe me. My brother had stolen everything I'd worked for. And Emily? Emily was still acting strange. I got my answer about Emily 3 days later when I came home early from a job interview to find Noah's car in our driveway and Emily's car parked behind it. Our house was empty, my parents were at work, but I could hear voices coming from Noah's room upstairs. I stood in the hallway, my heart pounding, and listened to my girlfriend and my brother discussing business plans. Emily was explaining details about my research that I'd shared with her in confidence, information about my supplier contacts and pricing strategies. He's too naive for this kind of business, Noah was saying. He thinks everyone's going to play fair just because he's honest and hardworking. But that's not how the real world works. I feel bad about this, Emily said, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Don't, Noah replied. You're helping me build something bigger and better than what he could ever do alone. And when it succeeds, we'll all be better off for it. I know, but nothing. Look, you've seen how our parents treat us. They've always known I had more potential. That's why they're investing in my version of the business instead of his. My world stopped. What? I must have said it out loud because the conversation upstairs suddenly went quiet. Then I heard footsteps, and Noah appeared at the top of the stairs. "Hey, bro," he said casually. "You're home early. What did you just say about our parents investing?" Noah smiled, that infuriating smile. "Oh, yeah, I meant to tell you. Mom and Dad have agreed to provide startup capital for my cleaning supply business. $50,000. They think I have a better shot at making it successful." Emily appeared behind him, looking guilty but trying to hide it. "When did this happen?" I asked. "Yesterday," Noah said. "We had a family meeting." "Well, I guess it wasn't really a family meeting since you weren't invited, but," he shrugged. "They asked about my business plan and I showed them the projections. Much more impressive than what you had put together. Because you stole my projections." "I improved them," Noah corrected. "Made them more realistic, more professional." I looked at Emily, hoping for support, for someone to acknowledge how insane this situation was. Instead, she looked away. "Emily," I said quietly. "How long has this been going on?" "How long has this been going on?" she asked, her voice shaky. "You know what?" Noah put his arm around her shoulders possessively. "Bro, I think we need to talk." That's when it all came crashing down. Emily had been feeding Noah information about my business plans for weeks. She'd been sleeping with him for almost as long. They'd been working together to ensure his version of the business would succeed while mine failed. "I'm sorry," Emily said, though she didn't sound sorry. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way. But Noah and I, we just connect, you know, and his vision for the business is so much bigger than yours." "My vision?" "It was my idea." "Was it?" Noah asked. "Because I remember us talking about eco-friendly business opportunities months ago. Maybe we both had the same inspiration independently. The gaslighting was masterful. If I hadn't lived through the reality of developing my business plan entirely on my own, I might have started to doubt myself. When I told my parents what had really happened, about Noah stealing my idea, about him and Emily working together behind my back, about the lies and manipulation, they listened with the same polite but skeptical expressions I'd seen countless times before. "I think you're being a little paranoid," Linda said. "Noah showed us his business plan weeks ago. It's very thorough. Because it's based on months of my research. Even if Noah got some inspiration from your ideas," Robert said, "his plan is more comprehensive, more professional. His projections show higher profit margins and faster growth because he's targeting the same clients you've been developing relationships with for months." "That's just smart business," Linda replied. "And honestly, Ethan, Noah has always been better at networking and building relationships. You're more of a behind-the-scenes type. He stole my girlfriend." "Relationships end," Robert said with a shrug. "It's unfortunate, but these things happen. What matters is that you move forward professionally." I realized in that moment that nothing I could say would change their minds. Noah was their golden child, and in their eyes, he could do no wrong. If he was successful, it was because of his natural talent and charisma. If I was successful, it would be despite my limitations. But I wasn't ready to give up. Over the next few weeks, I watched Noah launch his business, Eco Clean Solutions, which was almost identical to the name I'd chosen for my company. He used my supplier contacts, my product formulations, and my client list, all funded by my parents' $50,000. The most infuriating part was how successful he was initially. With their money and Emily's help as his business development consultant, he offered lower prices than I could and invested in professional marketing materials. Several restaurants that had shown interest in my products, like Green Leaf Cafe and the Bistro on Colfax, signed contracts with him instead. I could have given up. Part of me wanted to. I was devastated, financially ruined, and completely betrayed by the people I trusted most. I moved out of my parents' house and into a studio apartment in Capitol Hill. I took a job at a marketing firm in downtown Denver to pay the bills and tried to figure out what to do next. But late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I kept thinking about how easily Noah had manipulated everyone, how confidently he'd lied, and how readily my family had believed him. I thought about all the times throughout our lives when he'd taken credit for my work, science projects in high school, group assignments in college, when he'd charmed his way out of consequences, when he'd made me look like the jealous, difficult older brother. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let this go. I started small. I created fake email accounts and began documenting everything. I saved screenshots of Noah's social media posts about his business, boasting about his innovative eco-friendly products. I recorded phone conversations where he talked about his strategies and plans, many of which were word-for-word identical to ideas I'd written in my original business plan. With my marketing background and knowledge of the industry, I was able to track his client communications, supplier relationships, and financial claims. What I discovered was that Noah wasn't just a thief, he was a fraud. His improved formulations were diluted versions of my original recipes, cutting costs by using cheaper, less effective ingredients while still marketing the products as premium eco-friendly solutions. Several clients had started complaining about product performance, but Noah was managing to keep them happy with discounts and promises of reformulation. More importantly, he was lying to our parents about the company's financial performance. His books showed steady growth and profitability, but when I cross-referenced his claims with public business records and client testimonials, I found significant discrepancies. He was inflating revenue numbers and hiding mounting debts from supplier issues and client refunds. The most damaging evidence came from Emily herself. She'd apparently gotten tired of Noah's increasingly erratic behavior and his tendency to blame her when things went wrong. During one of their arguments, which I overheard when picking up some belongings from my old house in Littleton, she accused him, "You stole everything from your brother and then ran it into the ground." I started recording these conversations. Over the course of 3 years, I built an ironclad case. I documented every lie Noah had told, every piece of my work he'd stolen, and every fraudulent claim he'd made about his business performance. I tracked down former employees who were willing to testify about his unethical practices, like falsifying product certifications. I collected evidence of his misuse of our parents' investment money and his fraudulent claims to clients. I also used this time to rebuild my own life and business. I developed new product formulations that were genuinely improved versions of my original work, partnering with new suppliers in Colorado Springs and Boulder. I cultivated relationships with clients outside Noah's network, like small cafes in Fort Collins and offices in Englewood. I saved every penny and eventually launched a smaller, more focused version of my original business plan, called Green Tech Solutions. By year 3, Eco Clean Solutions was failing spectacularly, though Noah was still managing to hide the extent of the problems from our parents. He'd burned through their initial $50,000 investment and taken out several business loans to keep operations running. Several clients had terminated their contracts due to product quality issues. The company was facing potential lawsuits from both suppliers and customers. Meanwhile, my business was growing steadily. I'd focused on quality over quick growth, and my clients were extremely satisfied with both my products and my service. Word-of-mouth referrals from places like the Bistro on Colfax were generating more business than I could handle, and I was considering bringing on employees. That's when I decided it was time for the reckoning. I compiled everything I'd collected over 3 years into a comprehensive dossier, screenshots of Noah stealing my ideas, recorded conversations where he admitted to lying, financial documents showing his fraudulent claims, testimonials from clients describing how he'd misrepresented his products, and evidence of his misuse of our parents' money. But I didn't confront Noah directly. Instead, I sent the dossier to 3 people, our parents, Emily, and Noah himself. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Our parents called an emergency family meeting the day after receiving my evidence package. Noah showed up looking confident, probably assuming they wanted to discuss another investment in his struggling business. Instead, he walked into a room where our parents had printed out every single piece of evidence I'd provided and spread it across the dining room table like a prosecutor's exhibit. I watched through a recording device I'd hidden in the room as Noah's confident expression crumbled. He tried to deny everything at first, claiming I'd fabricated the evidence out of jealousy, but the recordings were particularly damning, his own voice admitting to stealing my ideas, lying about his finances, and manipulating our parents. When confronted with the financial evidence showing that he'd essentially stolen $50,000 and run a fraudulent business, Noah finally broke down and admitted everything. He blamed the pressure of trying to live up to their expectations. He claimed he'd gotten in over his head and didn't know how to ask for help. Our parents were devastated. Not only had their golden child betrayed their trust and stolen their money, but he'd been lying to them for years. The business they'd been bragging about to their friends in Littleton was a complete sham built on stolen ideas and fraudulent practices. Emily didn't fare much better. When confronted with evidence of her role in the theft and deception, she tried to play the victim, claiming Noah had manipulated her too, but the recordings clearly showed her actively participating in the betrayal and even suggesting ways to undermine my business, like offering steeper discounts to my clients. The legal consequences came next. Several of Noah's former clients filed lawsuits when they learned about the product quality issues and misrepresentations. His suppliers initiated collection proceedings for unpaid invoices. The business loans he'd taken out came due, and Eco Clean Solutions was forced into bankruptcy. But the personal consequences were the most satisfying. Our parents, finally seeing Noah for who he really was, were forced to confront decades of favoritism and poor judgment. They'd spent years telling me I was being dramatic when I complained about Noah's behavior, and now they had undeniable proof that everything I'd said was true. Noah's reputation in Denver's business community was destroyed. Word spread quickly about his fraudulent practices, and he became essentially unemployable in any sales or business development role. The shame of being exposed as a fraud and a thief sent him into a deep depression. Emily lost her job when her employer learned about her role in corporate espionage and fraud. Her involvement in helping Noah steal proprietary information and deceive clients made her a liability in any professional setting. And my own business? It thrived. When the full story came out, several of Noah's former clients, like Green Leaf Cafe, reached out to me directly. They'd been impressed with the professionalism and integrity I'd shown throughout the entire ordeal, and they wanted to work with someone they could trust. The first call for help came 6 months after Noah's business collapsed. "Ethan," Linda said, her voice shaky and uncertain. "I know we have a lot to talk about, but Noah is really struggling. He can't find work. He's behind on his rent, and he's talking about, well, he's in a very dark place." I listened silently as she explained that Noah had been living off credit cards since his business failed. He'd tried to find work in sales, but his reputation preceded him. He was facing eviction and had asked our parents for money, but they were still trying to recover financially from their investment in his fraudulent business. "I know we haven't been fair to you over the years," Linda continued. "We can see that now, but he's still your brother, and he's family. We were hoping maybe you could help him get back on his feet. Maybe give him a job at your company or just help with his rent for a few months." The audacity was breathtaking. After years of favoritism, after watching them invest in stolen ideas while dismissing my legitimate business, after they'd believed every lie Noah told while treating me like a jealous troublemaker, they wanted me to rescue their golden child from the consequences of his own actions. "No," I said simply. "Please," she pleaded. "I know he made mistakes, but—" "Mistakes?" I interrupted. "Mom, he didn't make mistakes. He made calculated decisions to steal from me, lie to you, defraud clients, and destroy my relationship. Those weren't mistakes. They were crimes. He's learned his lesson. He's changed." "Has he?" "Because he hasn't apologized to me. Not once. He hasn't offered to make restitution for what he stole. He hasn't taken responsibility for anything he did. The only thing he's learned is that actions have consequences." The calls continued for weeks. Robert tried the guilt approach, reminding me of family obligations and suggesting that real men forgive and move on. Noah sent pathetic text messages claiming he was suicidal and that his blood would be on my hands if I didn't help him. Emily even reached out, suggesting that we could all start fresh and that she'd made a mistake choosing Noah over me. She claimed she'd learned who she really was and wanted to make amends. I ignored them all. The truth was, I felt nothing but relief. For the first time in my life, I was free from Noah's manipulation and our parents' favoritism. My business was successful because of my own hard work and integrity. I had genuine friends and professional relationships built on mutual respect rather than family obligation. But the requests for help kept escalating. A year after Noah's business collapsed, I received a certified letter from my parents. They were facing foreclosure on their house in Littleton. Between the money they'd lost investing in Noah's fraudulent business and the legal fees from the various lawsuits, they were broke. They'd taken out a second mortgage to help Noah avoid bankruptcy, and now they couldn't make the payments. The letter was formal, written by a lawyer demanding that I provide financial assistance as their son and threatening legal action if I refused to help prevent their financial ruin caused by your vindictive campaign against your brother. I showed the letter to my own lawyer, who laughed and explained that adult children have no legal obligation to support their parents unless specific circumstances apply. Their threats were empty, designed to manipulate me into compliance. I sent back a single-sentence response: "Your financial problems are the direct result of your poor judgment and favoritism. I am not responsible for fixing them." The harassment intensified after that. Noah started showing up at my office in downtown Denver, creating scenes in front of my employees and clients. He'd accused me of destroying his life out of jealousy and claimed that I owed him for stealing his ideas. Security had to escort him off the property multiple times. Our parents began contacting my clients directly, trying to convince them that I was unstable and vindictive. They claimed that my success was built on stolen work and that I couldn't be trusted in business relationships. Emily started a social media campaign painting herself as the victim of my manipulation and control. She claimed that I'd been psychologically abusive and that she'd only been trying to escape my toxic influence when she'd gotten involved with Noah. But their desperation only made my vindication more complete. Every lie they told, every manipulative tactic they tried, only reinforced that I'd made the right decision to cut them out of my life completely. My clients, who had worked with me long enough to know my character, saw right through the manipulation attempts. Several of them, like the owner of the bistro on Colfax, actually increased their business with me specifically because they were impressed with how professionally I handled the harassment. My employees, who had witnessed Noah's erratic behavior and our parents' inappropriate interference, rallied around me and became even more loyal to the company. The final piece of poetic justice came 2 years later. Noah, unable to find legitimate work and facing mounting debts, had gotten involved in a pyramid scheme selling health supplements. He'd used our parents' names and credit to invest in inventory, promising them he'd learned from his mistakes and could turn their financial situation around. Instead, he'd been arrested for fraud. The supplement company he'd been working with was under federal investigation for false advertising and consumer fraud. Noah had been selling products with unproven health claims and using high-pressure tactics to recruit other sellers. When the investigation expanded, they'd found evidence that he'd been forging documents and misappropriating funds from his downline sellers. He was facing serious federal charges that could result in 5 to 7 years in prison. Our parents called me sobbing. "Please," Linda begged. "We know we don't deserve your help, but we're desperate. We don't have money for a good lawyer. The public defender is talking about a plea deal that would send Noah to prison for 5 to 7 years. He won't survive that. Please, just help us pay for legal representation. We'll pay you back somehow." "How?" I asked. "You're facing foreclosure. You have no income. Noah has no legitimate job prospects even if he avoids prison. How exactly would you pay me back?" "We'll sign over the house to you when we die. You can have everything." I almost laughed. "You mean the house that's underwater on its mortgage? The house you're losing to foreclosure? That's your offer?" "Please," she sobbed. "He's your brother." "No," I said firmly. "He stopped being my brother the day he decided to steal everything I worked for and destroy my life for his own benefit. You stopped being my parents the day you chose to believe his lies over my truth. I don't owe any of you anything." "We were wrong," Robert said, getting on the phone. "We know that now. We're sorry. We should have believed you. Should have treated you fairly. But please don't let your brother go to prison because of our mistakes." "I'm not sending him to prison," I replied. "His own choices and actions are sending him to prison, just like his own choices and actions destroyed his business and his reputation. I didn't force him to commit fraud. I didn't make him lie and steal and manipulate people. Those were his decisions. But you could help him now. You have the money. You could afford a good lawyer." "I could," I agreed. "But I won't. Noah needs to face the consequences of his actions for once in his life. Maybe prison will teach him something that 26 years of being coddled and enabled never did." The conversation ended with them cursing me, calling me heartless and vindictive, claiming that I was destroying the family out of spite, but I felt nothing but peace. Noah was eventually sentenced to 4 years in federal prison after taking a plea deal. Our parents lost their house and moved into a small apartment in Arvada paid for by social services. Emily moved back in with her parents in Lakewood and was working part-time at a retail store. Meanwhile, my business had expanded to 3 locations and 15 employees. I'd developed an entire line of eco-friendly commercial cleaning products and was being courted by national distributors. I'd bought a house in Highlands Ranch, gotten engaged to an amazing woman, Lauren, who shared my values and work ethic, and built a life based on integrity and honest effort. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Last month, I received a final letter from Noah, written from prison. In it, he finally admitted to everything: stealing my business ideas, betraying my trust, manipulating our parents, and destroying my relationship with Emily. He claimed to have found religion in prison and said he wanted to make amends. He asked for nothing except forgiveness. I thought about that letter for a long time. Part of me wanted to write back, to offer some kind of reconciliation. After all, I'd gotten everything I wanted: success, vindication, and proof that I'd been right all along. But then I remembered the years of lies, manipulation, and betrayal. I remembered watching him steal everything I'd worked for while wearing that smug smile. I remembered our parents choosing to invest in his stolen ideas while dismissing my legitimate efforts. I remembered that none of them had apologized when they thought they were winning. They'd only gotten sorry when they started losing. I threw the letter away. Update. It's been 6 months since I wrote the original post, and I wanted to provide an update on how things have developed. Noah was released from prison 2 months ago after serving his sentence. Within a week, he was calling me, asking for help getting back on his feet. He claimed prison had changed him, that he'd found God and learned the error of his ways, and that he wanted to make amends by working for me and proving he could be trustworthy. I told him no and blocked his number. He then started showing up at my business in downtown Denver, claiming he was homeless and just needed a chance to prove himself. He brought a minister from the prison who vouched for his transformation and begged me to show Christian forgiveness. I had them both escorted off the property and obtained a restraining order. Our parents have resumed their campaign of guilt and manipulation, now claiming that Noah's homelessness and depression are my fault for refusing to help a reformed man. They've enlisted extended family members from Colorado Springs to pressure me, painting me as cruel and unforgiving. I've blocked them all and changed my phone number. The business continues to thrive. We've expanded to serve clients in 12 states and are in talks with international distributors. Lauren and I got married last month in a small ceremony at Red Rocks with friends and chosen family, no blood relatives in sight. Emily attempted to contact me through Lauren's social media, claiming she wanted to clear the air and explain her side of the story. Lauren blocked her immediately. Sometimes people ask if I ever regret cutting my family off so completely. The answer is no. Noah is sleeping on friends' couches and working odd jobs that barely cover his basic expenses. Our parents are struggling financially and socially. Word has spread in their Arvada community about Noah's criminal behavior and their role in enabling it. Emily is still working retail and living with her parents in Lakewood. The consequences they're facing aren't punishment I imposed on them. They're the natural results of their own choices and actions. I simply refuse to shield them from those consequences. That's not cruelty. That's justice. And I sleep very well at night knowing it.